Hello and welcome to a new episode of On Air with Daikin. I'm Matteo Dell'Ombra, the National Specification Manager for Daikin UK. And today I'm joined by three esteemed guests in our studio. I'll start with my colleague, Steve Molloy, who is the Product and Sustainability Manager for Daikin UK. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Good stuff. And then moving on, we have Joel Brittain. He's the Head of Business Development and Sustainability for Ergro. Again, welcome, Joel.
Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Joe Dunningham, Associate Director with Accent Services. Again, welcome, Joe.
Thanks very much.
Right. Well, today I think we have a bit of a nice way to get the conversation started because we are all in to talk about a new thing, a new proposal that the Daikin started very recently. And I think actually one of the main reasons why we're here is because of you, Steve, because you were sort of spearheading the new initiative. So if you can give us a bit of a flavor of what it is, what the new Daikin and Decarbonised partner looks like, and what it is. And
Yep, I'll give you a brief flavour. Thanks, Matteo. So yeah, Daikin have noticed the shift, the demand for sustainability is ever growing, especially over the last few years. So we very much see the need for an aligned supply chain. So it's very much matching what clients' decarbonisation goals and their journey are to help them achieve what they're looking to achieve. So we're really looking for our install partners to come on the journey with Daikin to help our clients and your clients and others do the same. So it's very much making sure that we're all aligned in terms of our overall sustainability ethos and what products and services we can offer those clients to help match those goals.
And I mean, speaking of partners, at the end, we have one of the sort of in the first wave of new Decarbonised partners, and both Joel and Joe, you are part of that initial wave. So first of all, thanks for being that early and being sort of on the journey with us. And I know you've been both within the industry for quite a lot of times. And Joe, we go back in the before times. You used to be sitting on this side of the couch.
Wearing a different logo, same one as you. Yeah.
Exactly. So I guess what made you look at that sort of new scheme and the new offer and said, yeah, that's something that I'd like to sign up for and I'd like to know more. And
I think as a business, we're quite early on in our sustainability path. So we've signed up with a company to develop our Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions and externally audit those.
Mm-hmm.
So we just wanted some support, really, I think, from a big organisation and a manufacturer that we use very regularly. It'd be nice to have a bit of support on our decarbonisation and sustainability journey, I think, was our main reason. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I think it's the partnership approach that really appealed to me, where, you know, if we're doing a project and we've been told we have to use a specific bit of kit, we can come to you, get the kind of Daikin equivalent and get some information about the energy savings it's going to make, and then almost give, you know, a compliant bid that the clients asked for, and then also another tender that they might not have asked for. But yeah, it's going to save them energy, save them running costs, and help kind of separate us from the competition a bit. And also, I really like the business development fund kind of ethos behind the partnership as well, where we can get kind of money towards accreditations, building that kind of Scope 1 and 2 emission pathway, and
having an external partner to help you gather that information, because we have to submit all of our spend data for the last 12 months, and then they apportion each different type of spend. So maybe a spend on equipment equals X number of kilowatt hours of Scope 1 emissions, for example, or you have to submit your energy consumption figures of gas, electricity, water, diesel for your engineers' vans, for example.
do you see, so we started talking about data, and there's a huge amount of data that needs to be gathered, need to be found, need to be analyzed. You did mention Scope 1 and Scope 2. Maybe I was wondering, or even Steve, if you want to jump in terms of maybe giving the audience a bit more of an understanding of what is, like, what, when we're talking about Scope 1 and Scope 2, what are we actually talking about?
It's a good point. We hear these terms Scope 1, Scope 2,
Yeah,
Scope
exactly.
3 emissions, but what does it actually mean? So scope one, if we look at the end client, the scope one emissions are things that they directly can impact on the environment. So i.e. how much electricity they use, how much gas they use in their properties. So that's the simple one on the scope one. The scope two would be the indirect emissions. So i.e. where do they get that energy from? So i.e. if they have an electricity provider that uses 100% renewable electricity, that reduces their scope 2 emission. So we find that businesses and clients are very used now to reporting on their scope 1 and scope 2 and looking to reduce. The interesting part, which is, we said we come rapidly on this journey now, is scope 3 emissions. Scope 3 emissions are, shall we say, where the client doesn't have as much control. It's for the products and services they procure. So
and
for
the supply chain, yeah.
Exactly. So, and the supply chain that deliver that. We call it almost trickle-down sustainability. So, i.e., in there, if it's an end client that's looking to upgrade their building, their scope 3 emissions would be the parts that go into that building. So now the pressures now start to measure on those, and this is where you guys come in, because you're having to report your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions.
Somebody else's scope 3.
Exactly.
And that's
So it's
why
kind
we're
of like
being driven by our clients to go on this journey. And I suppose it all comes, somebody has to make the initial decision that they want to go on a sustainability journey. And if you want to be part of their supply chain and move forward with a certain client, you have to jump on board as well, right?
And I want to pick on that, on what you just said in terms of if someone wants to go on that journey, do you see more of that desire to go on that journey? Like, how, from your point of view, when you approach the open market and you are competing with many other different companies, do you see effectively this conversation about decarbonizations, about what we can do to reduce carbon footprint of, for example, HVAC system? Do you see an actual real life topic of conversation, an actual differentiator yet?
I think you can see it a lot from 10. So I've been writing bids for the last 5 years, and I've noticed the kind of question around sustainability and zero carbon targets and how we're reporting go from either not being included at all to being a really low weighted question right at the end to getting more weighting behind it, more words, multiple questions over the years. So I think it's definitely becoming much more prevalent and much more of an interest. And I think I kind of thought about 4 years ago, it's how we could set ourselves out from the rest of the pack if we started implementing good sustainability initiatives, taking control of what we're doing internally. It will help us in the long run. Did make a bit of a rod for my own back where now I've got to scope our 1, 2, and look at how we're going to scope our scope 3 emissions, which is it's not been easy. It's a bit of a minefield.
That's the fun part.
Yeah, at the moment it's an Excel spreadsheet, and working out our van mileage data, how much waste we're producing as a company, and how much energy we're using in terms of our office, and then working out the carbon coefficients, putting that into nice reports. But what I really want to do over the next few years is make sure we're getting, because that just covers our scope 1 and 2, and make sure we're getting as accurate data as possible, improve our reporting measures so we're capturing kind of wider bits within our kind of scope 1 and 2, business travel bits like that. And then once we've got that, start to look at scope 3 and how we can really quantify that. I think there's some great software, AI software that you can link into your Kefron system or your spend system.
Okay.
And that can tell you the carbon coefficients of different services that you buy and bits like
That's
that.
what I was talking about, the different spend types.
Yeah.
So it's clever enough to determine, what's equipment, what's a subcontractor, what's energy for your building, and then it applies to the different factors for it. But obviously we've just partnered with a company to help us start from a baseline. So what we didn't want to do as a business was say we consume, 100 tons of CO2, for example, to make it easy. We didn't want to just say, well, let's go and offset that by planting 1,000 trees. What we actually wanted to do was work out what our baseline was and actively try and reduce those tons of CO2 emissions by our own impact before we start offsetting.
Brilliant.
I think that's the idea, isn't it? Reduce as much as you kind of physically can, and then what's left that you have to have.
Anybody can say, I'm net zero because I, pay X to plant 1,000 trees. I mean,
it's also seeing what's going to happen to those trees. Is it a project that is going to last a lifetime, or what's the longevity of it?
Yeah.
Can you link other things in with kind of wide ESG pieces into that? It's hard because you want to avoid greenwashing, and I think you've got to take those steps to understand your baseline, reduce, and then get to the point where it's like, okay, we have to offset the last bit.
That's very much what it is. We hear this term net zero banded around a lot, and it is a legally binding fact in the UK. We have to hit net zero by 2050. But my ethos is, I almost don't use the word net zero. I use just decarbonisation.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you're saying, Joe. It's a term of less net, more zero. So
aren't the figures like 90% reduction by 2050 and then offset the remaining 10%? Is that the...
Exactly. There's so many nuances on how they could define net zero that's still
That's
to be
why it's net
defined.
zero, not zero.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think if we, as an industry, as we said, we're still very early on in this, and it's about getting data, collating the data exactly as Ergro and Accent have done, and seeking to improve. What we have found with some companies is actually in year 2, the data is actually looks worse. It's only because they're analysing more data.
Yeah.
It's actually in year 2, you tend to be finding other things that you hadn't necessarily accounted for year 1. So that's okay. It's about a decarbonisation journey.
That's what happened to us. Year 1 had a nice report, and then year 2, a massive jump. But it's only where we're improving how we're capturing things, less things slipping through the cracks. So I know it's going to climb up until we've got that perfect, and then the plan is reduce 5% year on year.
Yeah.
We can't, but
we also have to factor in, obviously, as growing businesses, if you increase your turnover by 10%, that's going to increase your CO2 emissions generally by nature of the business that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got 50 engineers out on the road with 50 vans across the country. So the more business you have, the more engineers you employ, the more vans you have on the road, the more carbon you produce. So
exactly.
So that has an impact. So that will look like you're increasing your CO2 emissions, but actually you have to take it into effect in comparison with your business turnover as well, which is what I've learned from partnering with a specialist to help us on that journey.
Yeah, we've been using an online tool to effectively feed all of our raw data in, and it gives you a nice report and the carbon coefficients. But yeah, put in the annual turnover, and then everything's measured against tons of carbon released against each £1,000 of turnover.
That's what I didn't understand to start with when I was thinking, well, we're a growing business, so of course we're going to consume more CO2. We're not going to be declining the amount of CO2 we're using. But then it was explained to me that there's a correlation between turnover and the actual. So as long as you're reducing how much CO2 you consume in line with as a percentage of your turnover, then that's the metric. Which I thought was quite interesting.
Steve, I think it's also fair to say that Daikin as well, to begin with, we are also going through kind of our own journey of transformations, because of course we want to be true partner at the end of the day. So if you go through changes and transformation, it's also only fair that we do the same. And I think not just services, but also new products and new initiatives, they all kind of contributing in that direction.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good point. There's the term preach. Practice what you preach. So we're very much internally looking at what we're doing within Daikin in terms of our fleet of vans and cars. So making sure they're electric. I've been in a lot of meetings recently analysing our reports of our carbon. Again, we work with a partner to analyse our carbon reduction. So that's one scope, what we're trying to do, a part of our scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. But again, we're looking at our products and services, what we can do. We mentioned about AI tools, what goes into the products. We're looking at in our factories in Belgium to see the makeup of the products now, to actually find out the amount of carbon that's going into those products. So, we lead the way with environmental product declarations for our products. We're Daikin are quite, shall we say, proud of the fact that we're able to analyse to that level. And that really helps measure the scope 3 emissions, scope that would go into to you, for instance, as part of the supply chain. I mean, are you finding the term embodied carbon coming up much at all with your clients?
Yeah, a fair bit. I think when we're looking at asset replacement projects, it's important to wait till the asset's obsolete rather than just changing perfectly fine systems for new, more energy efficient systems, because you've got all the embodied carbon that's made to create that system in the first place. So you want to get the whole lifespan out of it. So I think, yeah, it definitely comes up, and it's important to make sure that we're not replacing things under the guise of being more sustainable and net zero before they're ready, before they've reached their full potential.
I think it's educating the the end client as well, or the building owner, to, you know, make a certain investment so that you can get the full lifespan out of the equipment, so 15 to 20 years, for example, rather than, because all of that has an impact on the building's embodied carbon. I mean, we spoke earlier in terms of a building's lifespan of 60 years, for example. Within that, you've got between 3 to 4 different lots of equipment based on lifespan that building would need to have for its comfort, cooling, heating, ventilation. So it's really important to kind of educate the client to say, yes, you should have this upfront investment, because it really does affect the embodied carbon of your building as a whole over its lifetime.
So does that mean you should, keep the existing equipment running as well as it can do over the time, and making sure it's the maintenance and the control of the system?
I think is the maintenance of the kit. And just touching on that, educating the client. I think the importance of good planned maintenance in extending your kit is
Crucial, yeah.
It is crucial, and we find some clients that will like to work more on a reactive basis. As things break down, then they'll go and repair it. But I think by having good maintenance, doing enhanced maintenance on your kit, it's going to extend the lifespan. You're going to get more out of it, and make the most out of that embodied carbon.
Do you see also be more of a conversations around being able to be in better control of the systems and be able to be to retrieve almost like real-time data, like more data from the system to begin with, from a building point of view, to assess how the building is going? So essentially, not just worrying about the physical piece of equipment and once it arrives and once it's all piped up, but also very much how it influences then the rest of the building in terms of energy consumptions and in terms of operating carbon. Do you see more conversation around that?
What we're doing at the moment, we've invested in some smart monitoring technology. So when we take on a new client and a new building, we can offer a 3-month free trial where essentially we install these smart monitors on a selection of their kind of main plant. That monitors operational metrics to temperature, energy consumption, pressure, and just getting that raw data and getting an understanding of how things are performing, we can have some great impacts. After we do the trial, we get that data, and first it's quick wins. Are there any assets that are operating when they shouldn't be? It's amazing how many buildings they have things turning on at night in an office block.
Running 24/7.
When no one's
running
there.
24/7. Yeah.
Yeah, a chiller running here and the boiler running here at the same time, and it's because no one's in the building, nobody knows, or because it's it's all down in the depths of the basement, no one's got any idea. And if the BMS isn't picking it up, this technology will. So that's quite a nice initial one to almost vet the BMS. Are things working as they should? And just by bringing things back in line with their control strategy, you can make some massive energy savings. And then the second bit is to identify, what's your highest energy use assets. Once you know what that is, it's okay, great. We can make some targeted energy management projects and
talk about return on investment. If you're then looking at replacing it for a more efficient piece of equipment, or you're moving from fossil fuels to electrification, which we can probably talk about for hours. But I think that's really important in terms of
I think you can make
discussing the initial investment with the actual running costs of the equipment over the lifespan. So if you can demonstrate that return on investment for the client, they're more willing to go down that sustainability route, I think, because obviously there is a higher initial capital cost to go down the energy efficient and sustainable route.
And I think when you're pitching those projects and what the return on investment period is going to be, you get a much more accurate pitch when you've got half-hourly energy use data rather than just here's what the building's used overall across the year, and you're trying to make all these inferences and correlations to work it out.
It goes back to the baseline we were talking about earlier. You need somewhere to start with before you can work out where you're going to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're just talking in percentages. Well, it's 10% more efficient than what you've currently got. But what does that actually mean?
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but data sharing is also very much at the heart of the Decarbonise with Partner schemes, and trying to use that real time and sort of real life information to do something different. And I think we talk about a lot of different things, but it might be nice maybe now to just give a bit of an overview of exactly what goes on and that sort of what makes a Decarbonise with Daikin partner. And so just so that we can have a better understanding of how everything that we talked so far kind of flows and get together in there?
Yes, certainly. So we've set within Daikin certain criteria for our partners to sign up to. So to make sure we're all aligned on the journey. The number one that we've already talked about is having a decarbonisation plan that's third-party verified. I mean, Joe from Accent has already mentioned that Accent are looking at this and working with a third-party provider to help with that, and Daikin will help as well in terms of the financials with that partner scheme. So that is key, as we said, measuring the Scope 1, Scope 2 emissions is key to what the end client is looking for to help with their Scope 3. There's an organisation, the Supply Chain Sustainability School, that we're seeing a lot in the industry that's gaining a lot of traction. And it's a great asset to use. It is a school for our partners to use to increase their learnings in whichever area they want. It's free for any installer or anybody in the supply chain to use, and they can pick modules. It's simple modules where 45 minutes, half an hour here or there.
Yeah, it's
just
bite-sized learning.
Exactly, brilliant. And again, we were talking about earlier different ways of learning. There are videos there that people or items to read. So we just ask that our partners engage with the Supply Chain Sustainability School and get up to certain levels. So just start at bronze level, but then seek to improve.
It's got some great resources on there. When I was starting out trying to work out, okay, how am I going to quantify our Scope 1 and 2 emissions? I'll be honest, I didn't have a clue where the starting point was going to be, and then found a couple of modules on there, gave you a good kind of baseline to start, and then you just kind of learn as you're going and expand. But I think where we've done a lot of stuff internally, it's going to be really nice being able to get it vetted by a third party and see where we've hit the money, where we've done well, and where we can improve going forward.
And they can help you with targeted ways to reduce your emissions rather than, everybody needs a bit of hand-holding, right? This is quite new, I wouldn't say in the industry, but from a subcontractor point of view, it always has to be driven by the end client, right? It gets driven by the end client, then potentially the FM client or a main contractor, for example, that will be our client. So it kind of has to fall down the chain, and the subcontractors generally need to be pushed to say, come on, this is the way things are going. This is what we want as the building owner. If you're not on the train, you're not going to be involved, right? Which is also having the partnership and putting it into specifications, for example. So when you're talking about consultants specifying jobs, if they're saying you must be a Decarbonised partner, then you're going to have a lot more uptake, right, on the scheme as a whole, because everybody wants to win more work essentially and make more money. That's what we're all here for, right?
Yeah, it's adding value, and that's it. And what we found with the Supply Chain Sustainability School internally is also it's a great tool to. We're obviously sat here as leaders and thought leaders in the sustainability journey, but bringing other people within the companies to come along. So, within Ergro and Accent, it's a great resource for your colleagues to use. So we say that engineers out in the vans might not be interested, but if we give them the resource, it might help them upskill those, because we can't be individuals or small teams. We've all got to play a part in this.
Yeah.
So I think that's
and given sort of the size of the change, because at the end of the day, the more you start to look into these areas, the more you realize that there are things that need to change. The only way to really make it a success is that everybody buys into that direction and said, yes, we really want to go on this journey. We really want to change. We really want to improve, because otherwise there's always a risk that if you just throw it out there, essentially, it might fall flat. So that's really good to be able to have an easy way to bring as many people along the journey.
And we also want, for instance, the people installing the equipment for you to be on this journey, because another part of the criteria is quality of install. So we do ask that it hit certain criteria. So whether it be REFCON Elite or QDOS Premium or MCS, we actually would like your engineers to hit a level of quality installation. It goes back to what we said earlier about a well-installed system, a well-maintained system will run better for your client.
Yeah.
So by hitting...
It's okay, you guys, making the most efficient piece of equipment that you possibly can and spending all this money on R&D, but if the equipment's not installed correctly and maintained correctly, then the lifespan of that equipment significantly reduces, right? Which is why service and maintenance is a massive part of the lifespan of a piece of equipment.
Exactly that. Whenever a client, if their air conditioning goes wrong or something, they see the Daikin logo on there, they might not see, the installer's sticker on there. So it's about us making sure working as with our partners like yourselves to make sure that we're aligned that everything's working correctly.
I also think it's important for businesses or the partners to actually discuss. Like, I wouldn't have probably met you if we weren't coming on this podcast,
Yeah,
for example.
no,
So
exactly.
it's good to share ideas between businesses, and that way the industry is only going to improve, right?
Yeah.
100%. And every partner, we've currently got 8 signed up with another 4 pending, and it's growing. And every single one has said they would like to get together.
Yeah.
So I will be looking to organise a mini conference every so often to discuss ideas, best practice.
Like a round table. I think that would be really, really useful.
To share best learning. And
Definitely.
100% every one I've spoken to, yourselves included, have agreed and said that's a great idea.
Well, although we're competitors, we're all in the same industry and we all want to see it go in the right direction.
We see the same problems day in, day out. I think one thing that's quite nice that can kind of go alongside the roundtable is a group, a WhatsApp group. I've got another one with quite a few different kind of heads of sustainability from different industries, and it's great if someone has a problem, post it in the group, and you can guarantee that someone in there is going to have experienced the same problem, have some ideas on how to solve it, and it's quite nice just in terms of collaborating with people and getting past those barriers of being competitors and not helping each other out. And I think the pie is big enough for everyone, so
and that's
collaborate together.
That's what everybody says, and this leads on to the next point, which is great about sharing data. We're keen to work together for everybody to share data. Obviously nothing under NDA or anything sensitive, but we see it going back to quality install. A big thing in the market is the future of refrigerants. How and refrigerants potentially take up a large percentage of embodied carbon. We hear about global warming potential of refrigerants, but the global warming potential of refrigerants is only if it leaks. If we've got a quality install and it's maintained well, there should be no reason for that refrigerant to leak. So we're keen for our partners to share, and again, it can be anonymised data, what's happening with this refrigerant, so we can actually start to collate some real life data that we can share internally with our partners and the industry as a wide to get greater learning. So again, it's a journey about what's happening in terms of are refrigerants really that bad for the environment? Well, let's see only if they're leaked. It's about control.
And speaking of refrigerant and that leakage, we were having a chat before we started about how you guys approach the keeping track of what's happening with refrigerant, and if you can give us a bit more of an insight of what your processes looks like at the moment. Maybe there's something that, again, people can learn from the way that you do it, the way that you manage. And again, it's clearly an area that as an industry we need to improve in terms of how we keep track of this information and how we can use it to make sure that at the end of the day, legislations, but also new product innovation can really benefit from some of this trend. So yeah, if you can share.
Yeah, sure. So that was, we were talking earlier about the digital F-gas logs.
Yeah.
So, for us, 50% of our business is service and maintenance. So we use a field management software called JobLogic. I think you mentioned that you use the same. So whenever our engineers go to do a repair, for example, whenever they add or remove refrigerant and do F-gas leak checks during a maintenance, all of those records get uploaded to JobLogic, which is a digital platform, and clients can have access to this platform via a portal, so they can view all of their F-gas logs for their site and each piece of equipment that they own, which I think is really important. Also for us, we can monitor trends as well. So if you have a piece of equipment, for example, that has had multiple leaks over a short period of time or over 12 months, for example, rather than just going to site, repairing a leak.
So you proactively look at the data and make something out of it. It's not really just as a repository or a database. It's actually something that informs what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, so if we get a call out, for example, to say that a system's failed, our engineer will go to site, may identify that the system has a leak and requires a pressure leak test, for example. At that point, that will get sent back to our office, and our technical service managers for each of our business units will review the history of the asset and the history of site before just raising a quote for a pressure leak test. They will check, has this piece of equipment, have we done the same pressure leak test on this piece of equipment before, say in the last 12 months, for example? If yes, we need to let's stop, let's evaluate. Is there a bigger issue here? Do we maybe look at replacing the whole system? Because a lot of the systems that we inherit with maintenance contracts we haven't installed. So it's very difficult to. You're inheriting somebody's installation, and then you're responsible to maintain that equipment.
You've got to get to the bottom of what maybe wasn't done correctly in the first place.
Exactly. So if you find that there's multiple leaks across a large system, then yes, maybe we do look at, if it's on 407C, if it's on 410A, do we look at a different solution? Do we look at R32 VRV, for example, and remove the existing pipework and start again? Offering a 7-year warranty to the client with a full maintenance contract, and trying to extend the lifespan of the equipment.
Are you finding that clients are asking for decarbonisation solutions in terms of what can they do with their existing equipment?
Yeah, quite a bit. We've been building a framework of sustainability partners at the moment, essentially having a number of different applications that you can either retrofit to individual assets, systems you can fit to buildings, fully vetting them to make sure they've got all the appropriate CE markings and pieces like that. And then when we take on a new customer, or we're just having conversations with the client, seeing what kit they have in place, and then almost using the framework as a bit of a shopping list to see what application is going to be the most beneficial to them. But I think, this works best with forward-thinking clients that really want to either reduce their energy consumption, or they've got stringent net zero targets that they want to hit. But I think by having that capability and having access to all these specialists, it's quite nice that you can solve the client's problem, put them in touch with the best applications that are going to benefit them the most.
Again, it goes back to the education piece, doesn't it? It's like, how do you expect a building owner to know what a heat pump is, for example?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and that's something I always think about it when when you say building owners, they have so many bits and pieces to worry about because the building is made up of.
We're so laser focused on HVAC.
Like for us, it's like
what do you mean you don't know what a heat pump is?
Exactly, what we live and breathe on a daily basis. For them is a box that occupies some space somewhere, but is connected to the rest of the infrastructure. And so you're right in terms of how do we make it simple, tangible, useful for the end user to say, well, if you look at this is practically what you can save, what you can improve, and so on and so forth. So massive.
Which again, I think is good to be the Decarbonised partner where we can bring you guys in as well with your technical knowledge from the equipment that you guys are manufacturing. You can come in and we can do a joint solution, for example. So if a client does have a 100 kilowatt gas boiler, for example, which has come to the end of its life, well, let's go in and let's look at designing something specific for that building. So also you need to look at a building as a whole, so the insulation of the building, rather than just saying, let's take you off fossil fuel and give you an air source heat pump or an air to water heat pump.
No, you're right.
You're working on a lower flow.
View. Yeah.
Is it suitable for the building fabric?
Absolutely. It's always about the full solution and how, because I think that's also where sometimes some of the big headlines that you see online where they say a heat pump don't work here, don't work there, because it's sometimes it's just because the heat pump is seen as because
of the application
in isolation as a thing, and never really understood in terms of how does it actually fit with the rest of the building. Is the building ready to accept the technology and make the most of it? So
and that can sometimes, like you say, give heat pumps a bad name, but heat pumps aren't new, and heat pumps aren't just air to water heat pumps. They're air to air heat pumps, and I think Daikin's first air to air heat pump was like the 1950s, so they've been out for
a while,
a hell of a long time.
Works as well as you install it and you design the system, doesn't it?
Exactly.
We completed a big decarbonisation project for the London Borough of Camden at Swiss Cottage Library, and it started off, it was just degassing the system, removing some boilers, installing heat pumps, and we managed to get some Salex funding because they're a public sector organisation, and very quickly, as soon as they got the funding, the project grew arms and legs, and we're replacing the roof for extra insulation, we're taking all the windows out, replacing with double glazing, putting insulation behind bookshelves, which I didn't know would have a massive impact, but that saved a huge amount of money, amount of energy. But I think you've got to take that look at the whole building rather than just one system as standalones. And you're putting energy into a building. I think installation is probably the best way to keep the energy within and reduce how hard your kit has to work. And I think especially with heat pumps, where it's not necessarily the highest temperature and the speed that you're going to get off a gas boiler, if the building's really well insulated, you're going to feel the benefits from it, and it's going to work.
It's that perception that heat pump and air conditioning are two separate things. Actually, it's the same technology. You know, I was with a neighbour the other day that's, you know, about talking about air conditioning. I says, "Oh, and does heating in the winter as well?" He went, "Really?" You know, it's just this lack of understanding that one does the other. But I think, Joel, goes back to what you said. It's having a framework of options for the client. You know, building that sustainability framework. And you're right, working. You know, part of the Daikin Partner scheme is really about working with the manufacturer. You know, we will look to speak honestly and openly, helping with the best options. At the end of the day, it's the client's needs that we're all striving to meet.
And you can only have so many expertise within a business. And what's really nice about this partnership and our kind of wider framework is if a client comes to me with a problem and I don't know the answer, I can guarantee that someone within our network knows the answer, and you can put them in front of the right person and solve the problem for them.
And that's really key, the partnership. And that's, I think, something that as Daikin we've always seek to do and seek to improve. The idea of really, we are part of a big network, we are part of a big, huge area of expertise. We bring some expertise to the party, but then it's really how do we enhance each other's sort of work by really working together in partnership. It's been a fascinating conversation. We are sort of running a bit out of time. So maybe just one final thought each. So, for example, Joe, thinking of the partnerships and sort of what as a business you had to go through, what was, I don't know, maybe either the biggest obstacle or maybe the biggest learning that you got out of this initial approach?
I think it actually just gave us the push, because we've been thinking about doing this for a little while, because there is increasing pressure from our clients to go on this sustainable journey. So I think it actually just gave us the push to kind of, like you say, with this third-party company that we've signed up to help us externally audit our carbon reduction program as such. It kind of just gave us the kick that we needed. Right, you need to be part of an externally verified program. We've been thinking about it for a while. The cost is not cheap. We're happy to assist you with that cost as part of your business development fund. So yeah, that gave us the push to sign up to that, get that done, and get us on our journey. So
that's great. Joel, how about you? Anything that really stands out?
It's been where we've been kind of looking at this over the last couple of years, and it's been quite a slow process where I'm kind of the business development team and the sustainability team at the same time. You don't have a huge amount of time to invest on the sustainability side, or as much as I would like. Tenders always take priority, and I think
two full-time jobs, aren't they?
Yeah, it is. So it's I've been trying to get things moving along, get our emissions scopes, identify how we can support our customers. So it's really nice having essentially like an external arm of our sustainability team now that can help push things along at a faster rate where I would like for it to go, essentially.
Wonderful. Steve, where can people go to find more information about the scheme if they were really interested by the conversation, they want to sign up or at least learn more in terms of what actually is involved? What's the best way to do so?
Yep, certainly. So we've had the scheme out for a couple of months now. There is information for our installers on the website, so through the normal website means, or please contact me or the local Daikin representative. We've also seen a big interest in a very short period of time from end users, the clients, in terms of this scheme, especially in the public sector. We've had interest from certain police forces and NHS trusts. So please, again, look on the Daikin website. You can contact if you've already got Daikin.
We'll put all the links in the descriptions, in the show notes, so you can find the direct references.
Yeah, find out more. But it says, in the 2 short months we've had it out, it's been a great uptake, a lot of interest throughout the whole supply chain. And it says, through this, it's about alignment. And what's great is seeing the interest throughout that whole supply chain to help everybody achieve their decarbonisation journeys.
That's great. Well, Joel, Steve, thanks for joining me today. It was a really good conversation. Really, really lots of insights, positive conversations, and I think there's quite a lot that our listener can learn from this conversation. So again, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Matteo.
Thanks very much.
And see you all next time.